All right, starting Joshua today, the book of Joshua. Going to do the small outline at the beginning. Joshua, author, most likely Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' successor. Date written between 1400 and 1375 BC. Purpose: the name Joshua means God rescues, or Yahweh is salvation. This is the story of the conquest of the Promised Land under Joshua's leadership. It is about crossing over and entering into the fullness of all God has promised. In the wilderness, God provided for their daily subsistence. To possess the promises will require a fresh consecration, the courage to cross over, the will to enter in and fight, obedience to his voice as he empowers them to dispossess those stronger than they are. It tells us we must be willing to face the giants and rightfully reclaim our inheritance. The promises have been given to us by God, but we must lay hold of them. It will not happen for us as in without us, but it will happen with us as God grants the victory, for it is the Lord who fights for us. Only be strong and very courageous. Key verses: have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. If it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, choose for yourself today whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served, which were beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24:15. Key people: Joshua, Rahab, Achan, Phinehas, Eleazar. That's it. All right. Book of Joshua 1. God's charge to Joshua. Now it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore rise, cross this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, to the sons of Israel. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I have given it to you, just as I spoke to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, even as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and as far as the great sea towards the setting of the sun will be your territory. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I have been with Moses, I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and be courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed, for the Lord of your God is with you wherever you go. 1 Joshua 10. Joshua assumes command. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the midst of the camp, and command the people, saying, Prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you are to cross this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you, to possess it. To the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, Joshua said, Remember the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, The Lord your God gives you rest and will give you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan. But you shall cross before your brothers in battle array, all your valiant warriors, and shall help them, until the Lord gives your brothers rest, as he gives you, and they also possess the land which the Lord your God is giving them. Then you shall return to your own land, and possess that which Moses the servant of the Lord gave you beyond the Jordan towards the sunrise." They answered Joshua, saying, "All that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Anyone who rebels against your command and does not obey your words in all that you command him shall be put to death. Only the strong and courageous." That's it. All right. Joshua 2. Rahab shelters spies. Then Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men as spies secretly from Shittim, saying, "Go, view the land, especially Jericho." So they went and came into the house of a harlot whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. It was told the king of Jericho, saying, "Behold, men from the sons of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land." And the king of Jericho sent word to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land." But the woman who had taken the 2 men and hidden them, and she said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from." It came about when it was time to shut the gate at dark that the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them in the stalks of flax which she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued them on the road to the Jordan, to the fords, and as soon as those who were pursuing them had gone out, they shut the gate. Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land have melted away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. When we heard it, our hearts melted, and no courage remained in any man any longer because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. Now therefore, please swear to me by the Lord, since I have dealt kindly with you, that you also will deal kindly with my father's household, and give me a pledge of truth, and spare my father and my mother and my brothers and my sisters with all whom belong to them, and deliver our lives from death." So the men said to her, "Our life for yours, if you do not tell this business of ours, and it shall come about when the Lord gives us the land, that we will deal kindly and faithfully with you." Joshua 2:15, promise to Rahab. Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall, so that she was living on the wall. She said to them, "Go to the hill country, so that the pursuers will not happen upon you, and hide yourselves there for 3 days until the pursuers return. Then afterward you may go on your way." The men said to her, "We shall be free from this oath to you which you have made us swear, unless when we come into the land you tie this cord of scarlet thread in the window through which you let us down, and gather to yourself into the house your father and your mother and your brothers and your mother." Let me try it again. "Unless when we come into the land you tie this cord of scarlet thread in the window through which you let us down, and gather to yourself into the house your father and your mother and your brothers and your father's household, it shall come about that anyone who goes out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we shall be free. But anyone who is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head if a hand is laid on him. But If you tell this business of ours, then we shall be free from the oath which you have made us swear. She said, according to your words, so be it. So she sent them away, and they departed. And she tied the scarlet cord in the window. They departed and came to the hill country and remained there for 3 days until the pursuers returned. Now the pursuers had sought them all along the road, but had not found them. Then the 2 men returned and came down from the hill country and crossed over and came to Joshua, the son of Nun, and they related to him all that had happened to them. He said to Joshua, surely the Lord has given all the land into our hands. Moreover, all the inhabitants of the land have melted away before us. Okay, this one might be a long one. Our most sacred treasure, a history of the Bible, of the English Bible. The Bible, more than any other book, has shaped America into the unique nation that she has become. A statement that will be conclusively proven in the various commentaries and articles you will find throughout the Founder's Bible. The story of how the English language Bible came into existence is almost as interesting as the impact that it had upon the American people. Numerous Bibles and manuscripts have existed for millennia in various languages, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Septuagint, etc. But the first English language Bible came much later. It was a handwritten copy made by British theologian John Wycliffe in 1384, when he translated a Latin Bible into English. But at that time, it was illegal to put the Bible in the language of the common man, so Wycliffe had to flee for his life after finishing that translation. His followers, however, were firmly committed to his vision of making the scriptures available in English, and thus made dozens of handwritten copies of his manuscript. Each one took about 1 year to transcribe, spreading them across England. For the first time, a few English-speaking people received a glimpse into the scriptures, written in the words they could understand. Wycliffe's handwritten translation contained 80 books, including the New Testament, Old Testament, and Apocrypha. Significantly, until almost the 20th century, it is fascinating to note that English Bibles, whether Protestant or Catholic, included 80 books, not just the more common 66 that are considered today by most to be the most authoritative canon of Scripture. In fact, King James, early 1600s, even threatened heavy fines and a year in jail for anyone who printed the Bible without the Apocrypha. Today, the Apocrypha is largely considered as a Roman Catholic part of the Bible, but that was not always the case, as every major Bible by a Protestant reformer also included it. What are we to make of that? While there is no definitive complete explanation for why Bibles in the years leading up to the 20th century began to drop it, we can make the observation that whether or not the Apocrypha was to be considered part of the canon of Scripture, most every serious scholar of the Bible considered those books to be of value and profitable to read for personal study. That there is something unique and weighty about the accepted 66 books of the Bible is unarguable. A more detailed discussion of the Apocrypha and the canon of Scripture will appear a bit later in this article. In 1440, Johann Gutenberg invented the movable type printing press, which revolutionized printing. Instead of taking a year for just one handwritten copy, his process made it possible to print hundreds and even thousands of Bibles at one time. In 1525, William Tyndale of England printed the world's first English New Testament, which was reprinted several times over subsequent years. But because the Bibles in the common language were still illegal, officials gathered everyone they could find and burned them. And for any person found in possession of Tyndale's New Testament, the penalty was death. Eventually, Tyndale himself was captured, garroted, and then burned at the stake. Only 2 copies of his original work are known to have survived. In 1535, Miles Coverdale of one of Tyndale's disciples, took Tyndale's New Testament and added to it the Old Testament and Apocrypha, thus printing the first complete Bible in English. In 1537, John Rogers printed the second complete English Bible, but was the first one translated from the original biblical languages of Greek and Hebrew rather than from Latin. Because of the danger he faced, the Bible was printed under the pen name Thomas Matthew. So his printing is known as the Matthew's Bible. It too included 80 books. In 1539, Thomas Cranmer, head of the Anglican Church under King Henry VIII, contracted with Miles Coverdale to publish the Great Bible, the first English Bible that was officially authorized for public use in the common language. A copy was given to every church, and it was chained to the pulpit. Thus, it is commonly called a pulpit Bible. Significantly, an official reader was assigned to each church to read the Bible aloud so that the many illiterate people in England could hear God's word spoken in their own language. However, when King Henry's daughter, Mary, came to the throne, she burned both John Rogers and Thomas Cranmer at the stake. In the 1550s, persecuted leaders such as Miles Coverdale and John Fox, who had published the famous Fox's Book of Martyrs, went to Geneva, Switzerland, and joined the reformers John Calvin, John Knox, and others to produce a Bible that could be used by exiled Christians in any country. In 1557, they printed the New Testament, and in 1560, the full Bible. And because it was printed in Geneva, it was aptly titled the Geneva Bible. It was the first Bible to add numbered verses to each chapter, and it, too, contained the Apocrypha. The Geneva became the popular Bible of those who objected to corrupt practices of both state and church, known as dissenters, and it went through 140 editions from 1560 to 1644. Significantly, it was not until the publication and widespread distribution of the Geneva Bible that the general population had what could be considered a personal copy of the scriptures that they could own and actually read for themselves. The Geneva Bible was the first Bible to be taken to America, both to Jamestown as well as Plymouth, and it would have a remarkable role in shaping much of the founding of America. In fact, the famous paintings of embarkation of the Pilgrims that hangs in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol shows the pilgrims gathered around a Geneva Bible. What made the Geneva distinctive from all other Bibles at that time was its marginal commentaries on the scriptures, commentaries penned by prominent reformers. These commentaries regularly challenged culture, especially criticizing traditions and practices that violated God's word, including the primary form of governments in use at the time. For citizens in that era, a monarchy was the standard for government, and why not? After all, kings were featured prominently throughout the scriptures. King Saul, King David, King Solomon, King Rehoboam, King Josiah, King Jehoshaphat, etc. So it was easy for citizens to assume that God preferred monarchies, but a closer study of the Bible indicated that this was definitely not God's preference. In fact, God even sent the prophet Samuel to dissuade his people from monarchies. 1 Samuel 8:10-18. But Israel demanded kings anyway. So what was Israel's form of government before it degenerated into a monarchy? It was what may be termed a republic. In Exodus 18:21, the people were told to choose out from among themselves leaders of tens, fifties, hundreds, and thousands. That is, to select officials at what we could call the local, county, state, and federal levels. Understanding this original form of governance, The early colonists who arrived in America were students of the Geneva Bible, therefore established representative governments. By 1619, Virginia had instituted an elected legislature, and when the Pilgrims arrived in Massachusetts in 1620, they similarly announced they would be self-governed. For more about various forms of government mentioned in the Bible and the Bible's preference for the republican form, see the commentary accompanying Exodus 18:21. The Geneva's marginal commentaries directly influenced not only the colonists' views on the government, but also on subjects such as public education, civil rights, purchasing land from the Indians, instituting free market economics, creating written documents of governments, reforming corrupt judicial practices, and many other areas. For more on how the Bible specifically shaped American practices in these areas, see the commentary accompanying Proverbs 18:17, John 17:3, Acts 16:9, and 2 Thessalonians 3:10. In 1568, English church leaders and supporters of monarchical authority, stinging from the criticism leveled at them in the Geneva's commentaries, tried to stem the popularity of that Bible by producing the Bishop's Bible as a rival edition. It was made the official Bible of the Church of England, but never gained popularity among the people. It was the early forerunner of the King James Version, and it too contained the Apocrypha. In 1582, the Roman Catholic New Testament was printed in English. Translated from Latin at the college in Reims, France, it is thus known as the Reims. In 1609, the Old Testament and Apocrypha were translated from the Latin at the college in Douai, France. Combining the two, it became the first printing of a full Roman Catholic Bible in English, known as the Douai-Rheims version. In 1604, English clergy from the Church of England asked King James for a Bible version that would replace the Bishop's Bible and rival the scholarship and accuracy of the Geneva. But understandably, without the Geneva commentaries that so thoroughly excoriated them, including their anti-biblical divine right of kings doctrine. For more about this story, see Escape from Tyranny, accompanying Exodus 12, and for more on what the Bible said about the teaching and on when submission to government power is proper, see the commentary with Romans 13. 50 scholars therefore convened and consulted a number of earlier versions, including the Tyndale, Coverdale, Matthews, Great Bible, Geneva, and Reims, in producing their new Bible, the King James Version. When it rolled off the presses in 1611, it became the official Bible of the realm and was chained to the pulpit of every English church. A policy was also enacted that forbade the printing of any English-language Bible in any colony unless with official approval of the Crown, which was not likely to be given for versions such as the Geneva. Significantly, the King James and the Geneva versions were very similar in their wording. It is estimated that 95% of the text between the two is the same. But the King James eliminated the hated commentaries and thus silenced a major dissenting voice. Nevertheless, the King James was an excellent and accurate translation and currently stands as the most printed book in the world, with over 1 billion copies published. 1661, John Eliot of Boston, Massachusetts, printed a New Testament in the Algonquin language, that is, the Massachusetts or Mohican. And in 1663, he printed the full Bible, the first Bible to be printed in America. For more about John Eliot and this special Bible, see the commentary accompanying Acts 16:9. In 1743, Christopher Sawyer of Germantown, Pennsylvania, printed a Bible in German from the Martin Luther translation of 1534. He printed a second version in 1763, but that of the 1776 was his most famous. He printed 3,000 copies just prior to the Battle of Germantown in the American Revolution, but the occupying British troops seized most of his Bibles and used them as firewood and bedding for their horses. The British also tore pages from the Bible to use as wadding in their guns to separate the powder from the lead ball. Only a handful of these Bibles survived the Revolution, and today they are known as gunwad Bibles. In 1765, America's first thumb or miniature Bible was printed, being so called because its measurements were a mere 1.3 inches by 1 inch. It was an abridgment of the Bible for children that included many pictures spread over 100 plus pages with 6 lines per page. The first thumb Bible had been printed in England in 1601. Because of the British policy banning English language Bibles from being printed in America, America had to import Bibles from England. But during the Revolution of 1777, as a result of British blockades, America began experiencing a shortage of several important commodities, including Bibles. On July 7th, a request was placed before the Continental Congress to print or import more, because unless timely care be used to prevent it, we shall not have Bibles for our schools and families and for the public worship of God in our churches. Congress concurred with that assessment and announced that Congress desired to have a Bible printed under their care and by their encouragement. However, a special committee overseeing the project found that it would be cheaper to import Bibles than print them, and therefore recommended. The use of the Bible is so universal and its importance so great, your committee recommend that Congress will order the Committee of Commerce to import 20,000 Bibles from Holland, Scotland, and elsewhere into the different ports of the United States of the Union. Congress agreed and ordered the Bibles imported. Interestingly, decades later in 1854, when a church claimed that the government was violating the separation of church and state by allowing government-sponsored religious activities in public, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee responded with a lengthy report refuting their claims. In so doing, he specifically cited that 1777 Act of Congress, noting, "On the 11th of September, 1777, a committee, having consulted with Dr. Allison, an early congressional chaplain, about printing an edition of 30,000 Bibles and finding that they would be compelled to send abroad for type and paper with an advance of 10,272 over 2 lira over, what was it? What's that 10? Over 2 million in today's currency. Congress voted to instruct the Committee on Commerce to import 20,000 Bibles from Scotland and Holland into the different ports of the Union. The reason assigned was that the use of the book was so universal and important. Now, what was passing on that day? The Army of the Washington was fighting the Battle of Brandywine. The gallant soldiers of the Revolution were displaying their heroic, though unavailing valor. 1,200 soldiers were stretched in death on that battlefield. Lafayette was bleeding. The booming of the cannon was heard in the hall where Congress was sitting in Philadelphia, in the hall from which Congress was soon to be a fugitive. At that important hour, Congress was passing an order for importing 20,000 Bibles, and yet we have never heard that they were charged by their generation of any attempt to unite church and state or surpassing their powers to legislate on religious matters. Those Bibles, for whatever reason, were not imported, and as the war prolonged, the shortage recurred. So in 1781, Robert Atkin, publisher of the Pennsylvania Magazine and official printer of the Journals of the Continental Congress, petitioned Congress for permission to print Bibles on his presses in Philadelphia, thus precluding the need to import them. In 1777, Atkin had printed America's first English-language New Testament, reprinting it in 1778, 1779, 1780, and 1781, explaining that this new full Bible would be a neat addition of the Holy Scriptures for the use of schools. Congress approved his request and appointed a congressional committee to oversee the project. On September 12, 1782, that Bible received the approval of the full Congress and soon began rolling off the presses with a congressional endorsement printed in front. Known as the Bible of the Revolution, it was the first English-language Bible printed in America. In 1788, Isaiah Thomas printed America's first hieroglyphic Bible. Designed for children, it took key passages from the Bible and substituted pictures, or what Thomas called emblematical figures, for nouns, thus making it an interesting Bible game for children. Children would have to combine words and pictures, nearly 500 pictures throughout the Bible, to decipher the wording of the verse, but in case the children had trouble with the code, the verse was fully written out at the bottom of the page. These Bibles were abridgments, beginning with creation and ending with Jesus' redemption of man, but including many major moral teachings in between. In 1790, Matthew Carey of Philadelphia published the Douay-Rheims version, the first Roman Catholic Bible printed in America. In it, he included 76 books, leaving out 4 from the Apocrypha. In 1791, Isaac Collins, official printer for the state of New Jersey, produced a large Bible known as America's first family Bible. Its introduction was penned by the Reverend Dr. John Witherspoon, a signer of the Declaration of Independence and president of Princeton. Although it was essentially a King James version, Dr. Witherspoon saw absolutely no reason to acknowledge a king. After all, it was God's word, not King James's word, and the Americans had just fought a war to get rid of kings. Witherspoon therefore stated in the preface, "As the dedication of the English translation of the Bible to King James I of England seems to be wholly unnecessary for the purposes of edification, perhaps on some accounts improper to be continued in an American edition, the editor has been advised by some judicious friends to omit it." Also printed in 1791 was the Isaiah Thomas Bible, America's first illustrated Bible with 50 copperplate engravings. However, it is rare today to find the Thomas Bible with engravings, for at the time it could be ordered with or without the engravings, and the engravings were so expensive that most bought the Bible without the illustrations. In 1798, John Thompson of Philadelphia printed America's first hot-pressed Bible, a process that used heat to help sear the ink into the paper. It was the biggest Bible printed in America to that time and was published with the financial assistance of President John Adams and Vice President Thomas Jefferson. Signers of the Declaration, John Hancock and Samuel Chase. Signers of the Constitution, Gunning Bedford, George Read, James Wilson, John Dickinson, Jared Ingersoll, Thomas Mifflin, and Alexander Hamilton. Constitutional Convention delegate John Lansing, John Jay, co-author of the Federalist Papers and original Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Revolutionary General and Secretary of State Timothy Pickering, and many others. In 1808, Charles Thomson published the first translation of the Septuagint into English. The Septuagint was the Greek translation of the Jewish scriptures, done centuries before Christ for Jews living in Grecian areas who no longer spoke Hebrew. Thomson was the official secretary of the Continental Congress from 1774 to 1789 and is responsible for the Great Seal of the United States. For more about the Great Seal, see the commentary accompanying Numbers 2. It took Thomson nearly two decades to complete the translation, and his Bible was printed by Jane Atkin of Philadelphia, the daughter of Robert Atkin, who printed the Bible of the Revolution. It was the first Bible printed by a woman. In 1809, America's first Bible Society, the Philadelphia Bible Society, was formed with the help of signer of the Declaration, Benjamin Rush. Its goal was to provide a Bible for every individual who did not have immediate access to one, including the poor, prisoners, sick, etc. In 1812, it distributed America's first stereotyped Bible. Stereotyping was a printed discovery in England that made reprints easier and also allowed more copies to be run in each printing, thus greatly reducing the cost of the Bible. Make sure. In 1816, America's first National Bible Society was established, an American Bible Society. Founded by national leaders, including signers of the Constitution, Supreme Court justices, military generals, a U.S. president, a U.S. attorney general, and other national notables. It became one of the world's most active forces in Bible distribution. For more about the Bible Society movement in America, see the commentary accompanying Psalm 119 and 2 Thessalonians 3. In 1833, Noah Webster produced America's first modern language Bible, a revision of the authorized version of the English Bible. He published this work 5 years after he had completed his massive Webster's Dictionary, and therefore took what he had learned from that effort and applied it directly to the Bible, updating outmoded words in order to help them convey their original meanings. For example, when the Bible had used the ancient word fetch, he substituted the modern word equivalent bring. Similarly, he used 60 instead of the obsolete threescore, perhaps for peradventure, cow in place of kine, button for talk, capital for chapter, etc. Why did Webster want God's word to be easily understood by modern readers? He explained. The Bible is the chief moral cause of all that is good and the best corrector of all that is evil in human society. The best book for regulating the temporal concerns of men, and the only books that can serve as an infallible guide to future felicity, happiness. In 1842, the American Bible Society printed the first Bible for the blind. It was an 8-volume work using what was called pre-Braille rather than the line letter dot system of Braille that was used widely near the end of the century. Pre-Braille instead used regularly shaped English letters pressed onto the sheet from the back, thus raising an impression of those letters on the front of the page. The reader would then move his fingers over the letters and words to read the text. In 1858, the American Bible Society reprinted a special edition of the Bible for William Russell, William Waddell, and Alexander Majors, the owners of the Pony Express. With a distinct imprint on the front of each cover, a Bible was given to each writer. Typically, Pony Express riders were under 18 years old, with some being 11, and they made a galloping horseback ride from nearly 1,800 miles over a period of 10 days, traversing through 190 relay stations from St. Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California, then returning, fighting outlaws, Indians, and perils along the way in each direction. The owners of the Pony Express wanted their riders who faced daily danger to be spiritually prepared. In 1861, the American Bible Society distributed several million pocket Bibles to both Union and Confederate troops, a practice repeated in every military conflict since. In his second inaugural address in 1864, President Abraham Lincoln acknowledged the fact that the Union and Confederate armies both read the same Bible and prayed to the same God. In 1881, the revised version of the King James New Testament was introduced. It compared and corrected the original King James by using ancient manuscripts that had been discovered since 1611. In 1885, the Old Testament was printed, and in 1894, the Apocrypha was completed. The revised version became a popular edition in that era. In 1901, the American Standard Version was introduced, the American revision of the 1885 revised version of the King James. It was also widely accepted and used in churches across America. In 1917, military Bibles were distributed to American forces in World War I. In the front of the New Testament was a message from President Woodrow Wilson. This book speaks both the voice of God and the voice of humanity, for there is told in it the most convincing of human experience that has ever been written. Take it all in, all, and those who heed that story will know that strength and happiness and success are all summed up in the exhortation, fear God and keep his commandments. Woodrow Wilson. In 1941, military Bibles were distributed to American forces in World War II. In the front of the New Testament was a message from President Franklin Roosevelt. As Commander-in-Chief, I take pleasure in commanding the reading of the Bible to all those who serve in the armed forces of the United States. Throughout the centuries, men of many faiths and diverse origins have found in the sacred book words of wisdom, counsel, and inspiration. It is a fountain of strength and now, as always, an aid in attaining the highest aspiration of the human soul. Very sincerely yours, Franklin D. Roosevelt. I think I can do it. Also distributed during the war were the New Testaments known as Heart Shield Bibles. The front cover was made of steel with the inscription, "May this keep you safe from harm." Significantly, because it was kept in a soldier's front breast pocket, the metal cover of the Bible did indeed stop bullets that otherwise would have killed soldiers. In 1971, the New American Standard Bible, NASB, was published as a revision of the 1901 American Standard Bible. The NASB was a word-for-word translation out of the original Greek and Hebrew manuscripts. This version, which is used in this work, the Founder's Bible, NASB, that's this one, all right, is considered by Christian translators and scholars to be the most accurate English translation ever produced. In 1973, the New International Version, NIV, was published as a phrase-for-phrase rather than a word-for-word translation of the Bible. It was intended to be less academic and scholarly and was designed for ease of reading. In 1982, the New King James Version, NKJV, was published as a modern language update of the King James Version, a more modern version of what Webster had done in 1833. In 2002, the English Standard Version was published in an attempt to combine the accuracy of the NASB and the readability of the NIV. This is a brief look at some of the highlights of how the Bible came to America and some of the major versions that have become part of our history. The remainder of the Founder's Bible will present specific ideas and verses from the Bible that directly shape so many of America's institutions and so much of its culture. As to the Apocrypha and what we are to make of it, the Apocrypha is a group of books written from about 190 BC to about AD 210. These books fall into two main divisions, the Old Testament and New Testament apocryphal books. The Old Testament books were excluded from some early versions of the Old Testament, but included in others, which in part explains why Bibles used by Roman Catholics contain the Old Testament Apocrypha, while they are no longer included in most Protestant editions of the Scriptures. It is also noted that none of these books were found in the Hebrew canon. They were never quoted by Jesus, and it cannot be with certainty be affirmed that the apostles ever directly alluded to them. The New Testament apocryphal books were written long after the death of the apostles and other eyewitnesses to the life and ministry of Jesus, and none were judged as authoritative by the officials of the early church. While it is true that every major Bible by a Protestant reformer included the Apocrypha, It is with the same understanding as that of the early church, which recommended that they be read for edification and study, but not as part of the authoritative canon of Scripture. Martin Luther, who translated the entire Bible into German in 1534, regarded the Apocrypha as profitable and good to be read, but not equal to the Holy Scriptures. 1562, the Church of England said, "These are the books the Church doth read, for example of life and instruction of manners, but yet doth it not apply them to establish any doctrine." Westminster Confession of 1643 stated these books had no part of the canon of Scripture and therefore are of no authority in the Church of God, or to be any otherwise approved or made use of than other human writings. However, the Council of Trent in 1546 declared the Apocrypha to be canonical, and this has since been the position of the Roman Catholic Church over time, with sola scriptura, by Scripture alone, being one of the foundational doctrinal principles of the Reformation, which demands that all other authorities governing Christian life and devotion are to be subordinate to and are to be corrected by the written Word of God. As the Reformers continue to debate Roman Catholic leaders over the proper basis for doctrinal formation, they eventually concluded that for the sake of clarity, the Apocrypha should be dropped altogether from the Bible, signifying that while these books may be useful and were attributed as the work of godly men, they are not inspired writings on the same level as the 66 books of the Bible. That's why I'm reading them separately. So does the Bible speak to the question? It may. In a most fascinating and relevant way through God's detailed instructions to Moses concerning the construction of the golden lampstand for use in the tabernacle. Exodus 25:31-40. Keep in mind that we are told in numerous places that much of what is written in the Old Testament is written for us as examples. 1 Corinthians 10:6 and 11. As types and shadows, symbols that prophesy to us, speaking of Christ who is to come. Hebrews 9:1-24. Hebrews 9:2 specifically refers to the golden lampstand as one of those types. A shadow, an earthly copy of something heavenly. The lampstand was the only light source inside the holy place in the tabernacle. Its purpose was to give light. So what is it a type of? Jesus says of himself, "I am the light of the world," John 8:12. He also says that believers are the light of the world, Matthew 5:14. But while Jesus is pictured in the lampstand, most biblical scholars believe it is the symbol of the Word of God. A few of the many scriptures that reveal this are, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." Psalm 119:105. "The law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The judgments of the Lord are true. They are righteous altogether. They are more desirable than gold, yes, than much fine gold." Psalm 19:7-10. In the light of the lampstand, being a type of symbol of the Word of God, these are the specific instructions God gave to Moses regarding the construction of the lampstand in Exodus 25:31-40. "Then you shall make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand and its base and its shaft are to be made of hammered work. Its cups, its bulbs, and its flowers shall be of one piece with it. 6 branches shall go out from its sides. 3 branches of the lampstand from its one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand from its other side. 3 cups shall be shaped like almond blossoms, in the one branch a bulb and a flower, and 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, in the other branch a bulb and a flower. So for 6 branches going out from the lampstand, and in the lampstand 4 cups shaped like almond blossoms, its bulbs and its flowers. A bulb shall be under the first pair of branches coming out of it, and a bulb under the second pair of branches coming out of it, and a bulb under the third pair of branches coming out of it, for the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand. Their bulbs and their branches shall be one piece with it. All of it shall be one piece of hammered work of pure gold. Then you shall make its lamps 7 in number, and they shall mount its lamps so as to shed light on the space in front of it. Its snuffers and their trays shall be of pure gold. It shall be made from the talent of pure gold with all these utensils. See that you make them after the pattern for them, which was shown to you on the mountain. It is interesting to note that the lampstand was to be made of pure gold, symbolic of divine origin. Unlike some of the other pieces in the tabernacle, no acacia wood or any other materials were to be used for the lampstand, only pure gold. But it was to be made of hammered work, which involves a human craftsmanship. Moses was to fashion together many different pieces into the lampstand that shall be one piece of hammered work of pure gold. Remember, at this point in the journey, all that Israel had was the 10 Commandments etched into 2 stone tablets by God himself. God revealed the specific pattern for the lampstand construction to Moses long before there were the many different books of the Old Testament, and that centuries later would be combined with the books of the New Testament to give us our Bible. The lampstand was to have 7 branches, with 3 branches on each side of each center branch. Each branch was comprised of 3 cups in the shapes of an almond blossom. And each cup had a bulb and a flower, thus 9 pieces, 3 plus 3 plus 3, form one branch. The center branch had 4 cups, each with a bulb and a flower, or 12 pieces, 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So, there are 6 outer branches of 9 pieces each, and 1 center branch of 12, which means the combined number of individual pieces, 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 12, 66. The golden lampstand, being a type of symbol of the Word of God, has 66 individual pieces of hammered gold that are fashioned together into a single complete unit. And the Bible has 66 books by dozens of authors written over the span of some 1,500 years, preserved and recorded for us, upon whom the ends of the age have come, fashioned together to create one amazing continuous story that testifies of God and shines light on his purpose and plan of salvation for mankind. Is it coincidental, or is it God's providence? There's more. Adding up the individual pieces of hammered gold of the first 4 branches of the lampstand, 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 12 gives a total of 39, the number of books in the Old Testament. Combining the individual pieces of the remaining 3 branches, 9 plus 9 plus 9, yields a total of 27, the precise number of books in the New Testament. Not everyone is going to agree as to whether this proves anything, but it's hard to not agree that this is utterly amazing. The Bible has 39 Old Testament books, plus 27 New Testament books, equals 66 books of hammered pure gold that are considered one complete work, not just 39 or 27 or 80, but 66 divinely inspired, purposed, and planned before the first one was ever penned. And that is just one of the marvelous gems awaiting discovery in this supernatural book. That's it. All right. Joshua 3. Israel crosses the Jordan. Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and he and all the sons of Israel set out from Shittim and came to the Jordan, and they lodged there before they crossed. At the end of the 3 days, the officers went through the midst of the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, "When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, with the Levitical priests carrying it, then you shall set out from your place and go after it. However, there shall be between you and it a distance of about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. Then Joshua said to the people, Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. And Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, Take up the ark of the covenant and cross over ahead of the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went ahead of the people. Now the Lord said to Joshua, This day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that just as I have been with Moses, I will be with you. You shall, moreover, command the priests who are carrying the ark of the covenant, saying, When you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. And Joshua said to the sons of Israel, Come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. Joshua said, By this you shall know what the living God is among you, and that he will assuredly dispossess from before you the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Hivite, the Perizzite, the Girgashite, the Amorite, and the Jebusite. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of the earth is crossing over ahead of you into Jordan. Now then, take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man for each tribe. It shall come about when the soles of the feet of the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, rest in the waters of the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan will be cut off, and the waters which are flowing down from above will stand in one heap. So when the people set out from their tents to cross the Jordan with the priests carrying the ark of the covenant before the people, and when those who carried the ark came into the Jordan, and the feet of the priests carrying the ark were dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks on the days of harvest. The waters which were flowing down from above stood and rose up in one heap a great distance away at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan, and those which were flowing down towards the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea, were completely cut off. So the people crossed opposite Jericho. And the priests who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel crossed on dry ground until all the nation had finished crossing the Jordan. That's it. If I can find this. There it is. All right. Joshua 4. Memorial stones from Jordan. Now when all the nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Take yourselves 12 men from the people, 1 man from each tribe, and command them, saying, Take up yourselves 12 stones from here out of the middle of the Jordan, from the place where the priest's feet are standing firm, and carry them over with you, and lay them down in the lodging place where you will lodge tonight. So Joshua called the 12 men whom he had appointed from the sons of Israel, 1 man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, Cross again to the ark of the Lord of your God into the middle of the Jordan, and each of you take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Israel. Let this be a sign among you, so that when your children ask later, saying, What did these stones mean to you? Then you shall say to them, Because the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall become a memorial to the sons of Israel forever. Thus the sons of Israel did as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, just as the Lord spoke to Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Israel. And they carried them over with them to the lodging place and put them down there. Then Joshua set up 12 stones in the middle of the Jordan at the place where the feet of the priests who carried the ark of the covenant were standing, and they are there to this day. For the priests who carried the ark were standing in the middle of the Jordan until everything was completed that the Lord had commanded Joshua to speak to the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. And the people hurried and crossed, and when all the people had finished crossing, the ark of the Lord and the priests crossed before the people. The sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh crossed over in battle array before the sons of Israel, just as Moses had spoken to them. About 40,000 equipped for war crossed for battle before the Lord to the desert plains of Jericho. On that day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, so that they revered him, just as they had revered Moses all the days of his life. Now the Lord said to Joshua, "Command the priests who carry the ark of the testimony that they come up from the Jordan." So Joshua commanded the priests, saying, "Come up from the Jordan." It came about when the priests who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come up from the middle of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up to the dry ground, that the waters of the Jordan turned to their place and went over all its banks as before. Now the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th of the first month and camped at Gilgal on the eastern edge of Jericho. Those 12 stones which they had taken from the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. He said to the sons of Israel, "When your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, 'What are these stones?' then you shall inform your children, saying, 'Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed, just as the Lord your God had done to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we had crossed, that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, so that you may fear the Lord of your God forever." That's it. All right. Joshua 5. Israel is circumcised. Now it came about when all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard how the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan before the sons of Israel until they had crossed, that their hearts melted, and there was no spirit in them any longer because of the sons of Israel. At that time the Lord said to Joshua, "Make for yourself flint knives and circumcise again the sons of Israel the second time." So Joshua made himself flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at Jabbeth Haraloth. This is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the people who came out of Egypt, who were males, all the men of war, died in the wilderness along the way after they came out of Egypt. For all the people who came out were circumcised, but all the people who were born in the wilderness along the way as they came out of Egypt had not been circumcised. For the sons of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, until all the nation, that is, the men of war who came out of Egypt, perished because they did not listen to the voice of the Lord, to whom the Lord had sworn that he would not let them see the land which the Lord had sworn to the fathers to give us, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Their children, whom he raised up in their place, Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them along the way. Now when they had finished circumcising all the nation, they remained in their places in the camp until they were healed. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you." So the name of that place is called Gilgal to this day. While the sons of Israel camped at Gilgal, they observed the Passover on the evening of the 14th day of the month on the desert plains of Jericho. On the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened cakes, and parched grain. The manna ceased on the day after they had eaten some of the produce of the land, so that the sons of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate some of the yield of the land of Canaan during that year. Now it came about when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing opposite him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" He said, "No, rather I indeed come now as captain of the host of the Lord." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and bowed down and said to him, "What has my Lord to say to his servant?" The captain of the Lord's host said to Joshua, "Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. holy, and Joshua did so. Joshua 6, the conquest of Jericho. Now Jericho was tightly shut because of the sons of Israel. No one went out, no one came in. The Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and the valiant warriors. You shall march around the city, all the men of war circling the city once. You shall do so for 6 days. Also 7 priests shall carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. Then on the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. It shall be that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people will go up every man straight ahead." So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. Then he said to the people, Go forward and march around the city, and let the armed men go on before the ark of the Lord. And it was so, that when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went before and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. The armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard came after the ark while they continued to blow the trumpets. But Joshua commanded the people, saying, You shall not shout, nor let your voice be heard, nor let a word proceed out of your mouth until the day I tell you, shout, then you shall shout. So he had the ark of the Lord taken around the city, circling it once. Then they came into camp and spent the night in the camp. Now Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually and blew the trumpets, and the armed men went before them, and the rear guard came after the ark of the Lord while they continued to blow the trumpets. Thus the 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned to the camp. They did so for 6 days. Then on the 7th day they rose early at the dawning of the day and marched around the city in the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they marched around the city 7 times. At the 7th time, when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city shall be under the ban. It and all that is in it belongs to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot and all who are with her in the house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But as for you, only keep yourselves from the things under the ban, so that you do not covet them and take some of the things under the ban, and make the camp of Israel accursed and bring trouble on it. But all the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord. They shall go into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted, and the priests blew the trumpets. And when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted with great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight ahead, and they took the city. They utterly destroyed everything in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep and donkey, with the edge of the sword. Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied out the land, Go into the harlot's house and bring the woman and all she has out of there, as you have sworn to her. So the young men who were spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and her brothers and all she had. They also brought out all her relatives and placed them outside the camp of Israel. They burned the city with fire and all that was in it. Only the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. However, Rahab the harlot and her father's household and all she had Joshua spared, and she has lived in the midst of Israel to this day. She hid the messengers from whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Then Joshua made them take an oath at that time, saying, Cursed before the Lord is the man who rises up and builds this city Jericho With the loss of his firstborn he shall lay its foundation, and with the loss of his youngest son he shall set up its gates. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. Okay. Joshua 7. Israel is defeated at Ai. But the sons of Israel acted unfaithfully in regard to the things under the ban, for Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, took some of the things under the ban. Therefore the anger of the Lord burned against the sons of Israel. Now Joshua sent a man from Jericho to, I guess it's A, which is near Bethaven, east of Bethel, and said to them, Go up and spy out the land. So the men went up and spied out Ai, whatever that, I don't know how to pronounce that. They returned to Joshua and said to him, Do not let all the people go up. Only about 2,000 or 3,000 men need to go up to Ai. Do not make all the people toil up there, for they are few. So about 3,000 men from the people went up there, but they fled from the men of A. The men of A struck down about 36 of their men and pursued them from the gate as far as Shebarim and struck them down on the descent. So the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening, both he and the elders of Israel, and they must put dust on their heads. Joshua said, Alas, O Lord God, why did you ever bring this people over the Jordan only to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been willing to dwell beyond the Jordan. O Lord, what can I say, since Israel has turned their back before their enemies? For the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land will hear of it, and they will surround us and cut off our name from the earth. And what will you do for your great name? So the Lord said to Joshua, Rise up. Why is it that you have fallen on your face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant, which I commanded them. And they have even taken some of the things under the ban, and have both stolen and deceived. Moreover, they have put them among their own things. Therefore, the sons of Israel cannot stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies, for they have become accursed. I will not be with you any more unless you destroy the things under the ban from your midst. Rise up, consecrate the people, and say, Consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, for thus the Lord, the God of Israel, has said, There are things under the ban in your midst, O Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you have removed the things under the ban from your midst. In the morning, then you shall come near by your tribes, and it shall be that the tribe which the Lord takes by lot shall come near by families, and the family which the Lord takes shall come near by households, and the household which the Lord takes shall come near by man by man. It shall be that the one who is taken with the things under the ban shall be burned with fire, he and all that belongs to him, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has committed a disgraceful thing in Israel. Joshua 7:16, the sin of Achan. So Joshua arose early in the morning and brought Israel near by tribes. And the tribe of Judah was taken. He brought the family of Judah near, and he took the family of the Zerahites, and he brought the family of the Zerahites near man by man, and Zabdi was taken. He brought his household near man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, from the tribe of Judah, was taken. Then Joshua said to Achan, My son, I implore you, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and give praise to him, and tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me. So Achan answered Joshua and said, "Truly I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel, and this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful mantle from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold 50 shekels in weight, then I coveted them, and I took them. And behold, they are concealed in the earth inside my tent, with the silver underneath it." So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was concealed in his tent with the silver underneath it. Took them from inside the tent, brought them to Joshua and to all the sons of Israel, and they poured them out before the Lord. And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan, the son of Zerah, the silver, the mantle, the bar of gold, his sons, his daughters, his oxen, his donkeys, his sheep, his tent, and all that belonged to him, and they brought them up to the valley of Acre. Joshua said, "Why have you troubled us? The Lord will trouble you this day." And all Israel stoned them with stones, and they burned them with fire after they had stoned them with stones. They raised over him a great heap of stones that stands to this day, and the Lord turned from the fierceness of his anger. For the name of that place has been called the Valley of Acre to this day. That's it. All right. Do you think we will succeed? Joshua 7. Joshua 6 relates the well-known story of Jericho. After the people of Israel marched around the city for 7 days and then blew trumpets, God supernaturally knocked down the walls, allowing the Israelites to enter and conquer what had been believed to be an impenetrable stronghold. Coming off this convincing victory over a strong adversary, the armies of Israel marched to the much smaller and weaker fortress at the town of Ai. After scouting the area, Israel's military intelligence leaders told Joshua, "Do not let all the people go up. Only about 2,000 or 3,000 men need to go up to Ai. Do not make all the people toil up there, for they are few." Joshua 7:3. The target was so small and vulnerable that only a tiny part of the army was needed to defeat this much weaker enemy. The plan was sound but had disastrous results. 3,000 men from the people went up there, but they fled from the men of Ai. The men of Ai struck down about 36 of their men and pursued them and struck them down on the descent. So the hearts of the people melted and became as water. 7:4-5. When the bad news reached Joshua, he tore his clothes and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of the Lord, asking God why he had deserted Israel. God assured Joshua that such was not the case, that the problem was Israel has sinned, and that they also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them. God specifically told the people not to carry away any of the pagan idols from Jericho, but a man named Achan disobeyed that command. God withheld his help from Israel until they had dealt with the sin among them, which Joshua did. When Israel returned to face Ai, God helped them completely destroy the enemy. Joshua 8. Other passages such as Isaiah 59:2 make it very clear that when left unaddressed, sin interferes with our relationship with God. Your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God, and your sins have hidden his face from you so that he does not hear. The founding fathers were very aware of the Bible lessons from such passages, a fact made clear in the writings of the Declaration signer Benjamin Rush. As America's leading medical doctor, he had been made Surgeon General of the Continental Army at the beginning of the American Revolution. He later recalled, "Upon my return from the Army to Baltimore in the winter of 1777, I sat next to John Adams in Congress, and upon my whispering to him and asking him if he thought we should succeed in our struggle with Great Britain, he answered me, 'Yes, if we fear God and repent our sins.'" The founding fathers understood that sin hinders victory, whether in personal or national life. Consequently, repeatedly throughout the Revolution, the Continental Congress called for days of humiliation, fasting, and prayer, urging the people to repent of any sins. There were numerous subsequent times when the founding fathers testified of seeing God's direct and visible intervention in the conflict. eventually resulting in America's surprising and unexpected victory over the much stronger and militarily superior British. When the revolution began, no nation in the world believed America would prevail. Because sin hinders victory, it must be addressed on a regular basis after all. When Jesus taught his disciples to pray, part of that model prayer was asking for forgiveness of sins. Matthew 6:12. God has made it easy for us to take care of sin. Simply acknowledge it, confess it, forsake it. For 1 John 1:9 promises that if we confess our sins, he is faithful and righteous to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. As such, it is wise to keep a short account with God. Many times in America's history, our leaders have known and openly applied this truth by calling the nation to humble itself and pray. Joshua 8. Conquest of I don't know, it's AI, so I'm not sure if that's pronounced I or A or something else. So, anyways. Now the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear or be dismayed. Take all the people of war with you and arise. Go up to A. See, I have given into your hand the king of A, his people, his city, and his land. You shall do to A and its king just as you did to Jericho and its king. You shall take only its spoil and its cattle as plunder for yourselves. Set an ambush for the city behind it. So Joshua rose with all the people of war to go up to Ai. I'm going to call it Ai because it's easier. And Joshua chose 30,000 men, valiant warriors, and sent them out at night. He commanded them, saying, see, you are going to ambush the city from behind it. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you be ready. Then I and all the people who are with me will approach the city. And when they come out to meet us at the first, we will flee before them. They will come out after us until we have drawn them away from the city. For they will say, they are fleeing before us at the first. So we will flee before them. And you shall rise from your ambush and take possession of the city, for the Lord your God will deliver it into your hand. Then it will be, when you have seized the city, that you shall set the city on fire. You shall do it according to the word of the Lord. See, I have commanded you. So Joshua sent them away, and they went to the place of ambush and remained between Bethel and Ai, on the west side of Ai. But Joshua spent the night among the people. Now Joshua rose early in the morning and mustered the people, and he went up with the elders of Israel before the people of Ai. Then all the people of war who were with him went up and drew near and arrived in front of the city and camped on the north side of Ai. Now there was a valley between him and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city. So they stationed the people, all the army that was on the north side of the city, and its rear guard on the west side of the city, and Joshua spent that night in the midst of the valley. It came about when the king of Ai saw it, that the men of the city hurried and rose up early and went out to meet Israel in the battle, he and all his people at the appointed place before the desert plain. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. Joshua and all Israel pretended to be beaten before them and fled by the way of the wilderness. And all the people who were in the city were called together to pursue them. And they pursued Joshua and were drawn away from the city. So not a man was left in Ai or Bethel who had not gone out after Israel. And they left the city unguarded and pursued Israel. And the Lord said to Joshua, stretch out the javelin that is in your hand towards Ai, for I will give it into your hand. So Joshua stretched out the javelin that was in his hand towards the city. The men in ambush rose quickly from their place, and when he stretched out his hand, they ran and entered the city and captured it, and they quickly set the city on fire. When the men of Ai turned back and looked, behold, the smoke of the city ascended to the sky. They had no place to flee this way or that, for the people who had been fleeing to the wilderness turned against the pursuers. Let's see here. When Joshua and all Israel saw that the men in ambush had captured the city and that the smoke of the city ascended, they turned back and slew the men of Ai. The others came out from the city to encounter them. So they were trapped in the midst of Israel, some of this side and some of that side, and they slew them until no one was left of those who survived or escaped. But they took alive the king of Ai, and they brought him to Joshua. Now when Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the field in the wilderness where they pursued them, and all of them were fallen by the edge of the sword until they were destroyed, then all Israel returned to Ai and struck it with the edge of the sword. All who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. For Joshua did not withdraw his hand with which he stretched out the javelin until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Israel took only the cattle and the spoil of the city as plunder for themselves, according to the word of the Lord which he had commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it a heap forever, a desolation until this day. He hanged the king of Ai on the tree until evening, and at sunset Joshua gave command, and they took his body down from the tree and threw it at the entrance of the city gate, and raised over it a great heap of stones that stands to this day. And Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, in Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the sons of Israel, as it is written in the book of law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones on which no man had wielded an iron tool, and they offered burnt offerings on it to the Lord and sacrificed peace offerings. He wrote there on the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which had been written in the presence of the sons of Israel. All Israel, with their elders and officers and their judges, were standing on both sides of the ark before the Levitical priest who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord. The stranger as well as the native, half of them stood in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had given command at first to bless the people of Israel. Then afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, according to all that is written in the book of law. There was not a word of all that Moses had commanded, which Joshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the strangers who were living among them. Now it came about when all the kings who were beyond the Jordan, in the hill country and in the lowland, and on the coast of the great sea towards Lebanon, the Hittite and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Perizzite, the Hivite and the Jebusite heard of it, that they gathered themselves together with one accord to fight with Joshua and with Israel. When the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and to Ai, they also acted craftily and set out as envoys, and took worn-out sacks on their donkeys and wineskins, worn out and torn and mended, and worn out and patched sandals on their feet, and worn-out clothes on themselves, and all the bread of their provision was dry and had to become crumbled. They went to Joshua to the camp at the Gilgal, and said to him and to the men of Israel, "We have come from far country, now therefore make a covenant with us." The men of Israel said to the Hivites, "Perhaps you are living within our land. How then shall we make a covenant with you?" But they said to Joshua, "We are your servants." And Joshua said to them, "Who are you, and where do you come from?" They said to him, "Your servants have come from a very far country because of the fame of the Lord your God, for we have heard the report of him and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon king of Heshbon, and to Og king of Bashan, who was at Ashtaroth." So our elders and our inhabitants of our country spoke to us, saying, "Take provisions in your hand for the journey, and go meet them and say to them, 'We are your servants. Now then, make a covenant with us.' This our bread was warm when we took it for our provisions out of our houses on the day that we left to come to you. But now behold, it is dry and has become crumbled. These wineskins which we filled were new, and behold, they are torn. And these our clothes and our sandals are worn out because of the very long journey. So the men of Israel took some of their provisions and did not ask for the counsel of the Lord. Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant with them to let them live, and the leaders of the congregation swore an oath to them. It came about at the end of 3 days after they had made a covenant with them that they heard that they were neighbors and that they were living within their land. Then the sons of Israel set out and came to their cities on the 3rd day. Now the cities were Gibeon and Chephirah and Beeroth and Kirath Jearim. The sons of Israel did not strike them because the leaders of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord their God of Israel. And the whole congregation grumbled against the leaders. But all the leaders said to the whole congregation, "We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and now we cannot touch them. This we will do to them, even let them live, so the wrath will not be upon us for the oath which we swore to them." The leaders said to them, "Let them live." So they became hewers of wood and drawers of water for the whole congregation, just as the leaders had spoken to them. Then Joshua called for them and spoke to them, saying, "Why have you deceived us, saying, 'We are very far from you,' when you are living within our land? Now, therefore, you are cursed, and you shall never cease being slaves, both hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God." So they answered Joshua and said, "Because it was certainly told your servants that the Lord your God had commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land before you. Therefore we fear greatly for our lives because of you, and have done this thing. Now behold, we are in your hands. Do as it seems good and right in your sight to do to us." Thus he did to them, and delivered them from the hands of the sons of Israel, and they did not kill them. But Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord to this day in the place which he would choose. Right. Joshua 10. 5 kings attack Gibeon. Now it came about when Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had captured Ai and had utterly destroyed it, just as he had done to Jericho and its king, so he had done to Ai and its king, and that the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were within their land. That he feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. Therefore Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, sent word to Hoham, king of Hebron, and to Piram, king of Jarmuth, and to Japhia, king of Lachish, and Debir, king of Eglon, saying, "Come up to me and help me, and let us attack Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the sons of Israel." So the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered together and went up, and with all their armies, and they camped by Gibeon and fought against it. Then the men of Gibeon sent word to Joshua to the camp of Gilgal, saying, "Do not abandon your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites that live in the hill country have assembled against us." So Joshua went up from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the valiant warriors. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear them, for I have given them into your hands. Not one of them shall stand before you." So Joshua came up upon them suddenly by marching at all night from Gilgal. And the Lord confounded them before Israel, and he slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and pursued them by the way of the ascent of Beth Horon, and struck them as far as Azekah and Makkedah, as they fled from before Israel, while they were at the descent of Beth Horon, the Lord threw large stones from heaven on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than those whom the sons of Israel killed with the sword. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the sons of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, O sun, stand still at Gibeon, and O moon in the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, until the nation avenged themselves of their enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jasher, and the sun stopped in the middle of the sky, and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day? There was no day like that before it or after it, when the Lord listened to the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Then Joshua and all Israel with him returned to the camp of Gilgal. Joshua 10:16, victory at Makkedah. Now these 5 kings had fled and hidden themselves in the cave at Makkedah. It was told Joshua saying, the 5 kings had been found hidden in the cave at Makkedah. Joshua said, roll large stones against the mouth of the cave and assign men by it to guard them. But do not stay there yourselves. Pursue your enemies and attack them in the rear. Do not allow them to enter their cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hand. It came about when Joshua and the sons of Israel had finished slaying them with a very great slaughter until they were destroyed, and the survivors who remained of them had entered the fortified cities, that all the people returned to the camp to Joshua at Makkedah in peace. No one uttered a word against any of the sons of Israel. Then Joshua said, open the mouth of the cave and bring these 5 kings out to me from the cave. They did so and brought these 5 kings out to him from the cave. The king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. When they brought these kings out to Joshua, Joshua called for all the men of Israel and said to the chiefs of the men of war who had gone with him, come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings. So they came near and put their feet on their necks. Joshua then said to them, do not fear or be dismayed. Be strong and courageous, for thus the Lord will do to all your enemies with whom you fight. So afterward, Joshua struck them and put them to death, and he hanged them on the 5 trees, and they hung on the trees until evening. It came about at sunset that Joshua gave a command, and they took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had hidden themselves, and put large stones over the mouth of the cave to this very day. Now Joshua captured Makkedah on that day, and struck it and its king with the edge of the sword. He utterly destroyed it and every person who was in it. He left no survivor. Thus he did to the king of Makkedah, just as he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua 10:29, Joshua's conquest of southern Palestine. Then Joshua and all Israel with him Then Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Makkedah to Libnah and fought against Libnah. The Lord gave it also with its king into the hands of Israel, and he struck it and every person who was in it with the edge of the sword. He left no survivor in it. Thus he did to its kings just as he had done to the king of Jericho. And Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Libnah to Lachish, and they camped by it and fought against it. The Lord gave Lachish into the hands of Israel, and he captured it on the 2nd day, and struck it and every person who was in it with the edge of the sword, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua defeated him and his people until he had left him no survivor. And Joshua and all Israel with him passed on from Lachish to Eglon, and they camped by it and fought against it. They captured it on that day and struck it with the edge of the sword, and he utterly destroyed that day every person who was in it, according to all that he had done to Lachish. Then Joshua and all Israel with him went up from Eglon to Hebron, and they fought against it. They captured it and struck it and its king and all its cities and all the persons who were in it with the edge of the sword. He left no survivor, according to all that he had done to Eglon, and he utterly destroyed it and every person who was in it. And Joshua and all Israel with him returned to Debir, and they fought against it. He captured it and its king and all its cities, and they struck them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed every person who was in it. He left no survivor. Just as he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir and its king, as he had also done to Libnah and its king. Thus Joshua struck all the land, the hill country and the Negev, and the lowland and the slopes, and all their kings. He left no survivor, but he utterly destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua struck from them the Kadesh Barnea, even as far as Gaza, and all the country of Goshen, even as far as Gibeon. Joshua captured all these kings and their lands at one time, because the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. So Joshua and all Israel with him returned to the camp at Gilgal. That's it. Then it came about, when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of it, that he sent to him Jobab, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Ashshahaf, and to the kings who were of the north in the hill country, and in the Arabah, south of Chinneroth, and in the lowland, and on the heights of Dor on the west, to the Canaanite on the east, and on the west, and on the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Jebusite in the hill country, and the Hivite at the foot of the Hermon in the land of Mizpah. They came out, they and all their armies with them, as many people as the sand that is on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. So all of these kings, having agreed to meet, came to the encamp together at the waters of Merom, to fight against Israel. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid because of them, for tomorrow at this time I will deliver all of them slain before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire." So Joshua and all the people of war with him came upon them suddenly by the waters of Merom and attacked them. The Lord delivered them into the hand of Israel, so that they defeated them and pursued them as far as Great Sidon and Misrephoth Maim, in the valley of Mizpah to the east, and they struck them until no survivor was left of them. Joshua did to them as the Lord had told him. He hamstrung the horses and burned their chariots with fire. And Joshua turned back at that time and captured Hazor and struck its king with the sword, for Hazor formerly was the head of all these kingdoms. They struck every person who was in it with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them. There was no one left who breathed, and he burned Hazor with fire. Joshua captured all the cities of these kings and all the kings, and he struck them with the edge of the sword and utterly destroyed them, just as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded. However, Israel did not burn any cities that stood on their mounds, except Hazor alone, which Joshua burned. All the spoils of these cities and the cattle the sons of Israel took as their plunder. They struck every man with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them. They left no one who breathed. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses his servant, so Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He left nothing undone, all that the Lord had commanded Moses. Thus Joshua took all that land, the hill country, and all the Negev, all the land of Goshen, the lowland, the Arabah, the hill country of Israel and its lowland, from Mount Halak that rises towards Seir, even as far as Baal-gad, in the valley of Lebanon, at the foot of Mount Hermon. And he captured all their kings, and struck them down, and put them to death. Joshua waged war a long time with all these kings. There was not a city which made peace with the sons of Israel except the Hivites living in Gibeon. They took them all in battle, for it was of the Lord to harden their hearts to meet Israel in battle, in order that he might utterly destroy them, that they might receive no mercy, but he might destroy them, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then Joshua came at the time and cut off the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them with their cities. There was no Anakim left in the land of the sons of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod some remained. So Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord had spoken to Moses, and Joshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel according to their divisions by their tribes. Thus the land had rest from war. That's it, Israel. Now these are the kings of the land whom the sons of Israel defeated, and whose land they possessed beyond the Jordan towards the sunrise, from the valley of the Arnon as far as Mount Hermon, and all the Arabah to the east. Sihon, kings of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and ruled from Aroer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, both the middle of the valley and half of Gilead, even as far as the brook Jabbok, the border of the sons of Ammon, and the Arabah, as far as the sea of Chinneroth towards the east. This is going to be all names, so I'm sorry. And as far as the sea of the Arabah, even the salt sea eastward towards Beth Jeshemoth, and on the south at the front of the slopes of Pisgah, and the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth and at Edrei, and ruled over Mount Hermon and Salcah, and all Bashan as far as the border of the Gershites and the Malchathites, and half of Gilead as far as the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the sons of Israel defeated them, and Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave it to Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh as a possession. Now these are the kings of the land whom Joshua and the sons of Israel defeated beyond the Jordan towards the west, from Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon, even as far as Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir. And Joshua gave it to the tribes of Israel as a possession according to their divisions, in the hill country, in the lowland, in the Arabah, on the slopes, and in the wilderness, and in the Negev, the Hittite, the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. The king of Jericho, 1. The king of Ai, which is beside Bethel, 1. The king of Jerusalem, 1. The king of Hebron, 1. The king of Jarmuth, 1. The king of Lachish, 1. The king of Eglon, 1. The king of Gezer, 1. The king of Debir, 1. The king of Gadir, 1. The king of Hormah, 1. The king of Adad, 1. The king of Libnah, 1. The king of Adullam, 1. The king of Makkedah, 1. The king of Bethel. I don't know if it's the king of Bethel, 1, or if it's 1, the king of. So bear with me. The king of Tappuah, 1. The king of Hepher, 1. The king of Apek, 1. The king of Lasharon, 1. The king of Madon, 1. The king of Hazor, 1. The king of Shimron Meron, 1. The king of Achshaph, 1. The king of Tanakh, the king of Tanakh, 1. The king of Megiddo, 1. The king of Kadesh, 1. The king of Jokneam in Carmel, 1. The king of Dor in the heights of Dor, 1. The king of Goim in Gilgal, 1. The king of Tirzah, 1. In all, 31 kings. All right. Joshua 13. Canaan divided among the tribes. Now Joshua was old and advanced in years when the Lord said to him, "You are old and advanced in years, and very much of the land remains to be possessed. This is the land that remains, all the regions of the Philistines, and all those of the Geshurites, from the Shihor, which is east of Egypt, even as far as the border of Ekron. To the north, it is counted as Canaanite. The 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazite, the Ashdodite, the Ashkelonite, the Gittite, the Ekronite, and the Evite to the south, all the land of the Canaanite and Merah that belongs to the Sidonians as far as Aphek, to the border of the Amorite, and the land of the Jebulite, and all of Lebanon towards the east from Baal Gad below Mount Hermon as far as Lebo Hamath, all the inhabitants of the hill country from Lebanon as far as Misrephoth, Misrephoth Maim. All the Sidonians, I will drive them out from before the sons of Israel. Only allot it to Israel for an inheritance as I have commanded you. Now, therefore, apportion this land for an inheritance to the 9 tribes of the half-tribe of Manasseh. With the other half-tribe, the Reubenites and the Gadites received their inheritance, which Moses gave them beyond the Jordan to the east, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. From Aror, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, with the city which is in the middle of the valley, and all the plain of Medeba, as far as Dibon, and all the cities of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon, as far as the border of the sons of Ammon, and Gilead, and the territory of the Gershurites and Maccathites, and all Mount Hermon, and all Bashan, as far as Selka. There are no periods in this stuff. It's all commas and semicolons. So I never know the correct cadence. It's very tough. Anyways, all the kingdom of Og in Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth and in Edrei, he alone was left of the remnant of the Rephaim, for Moses struck them and dispossessed them. But the sons of Israel did not dispossess the Gershurites or the Maccathites, for Jeshur and Maccath live among Israel until this day. Only to the tribe of Levi did he not give an inheritance. The offerings by fire to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance, as he spoke to him. So Moses gave an inheritance to their tribe of the sons of Reuben according to their families. Their territory was from Aror, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, with the city which is in the middle of the valley, and all the plain by Medeba, Heshbon, and all its cities which are on the plain, Dibon and Bamoth Baal, and Beth Baal Meon, and Jahaz, and Kedmoth, and Mephath, and Kirathaim, and Sibma, and Zerathashahar on the hill of the valley, and Beth Peor, and the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Jeshimoth, even all the cities of the plain, and all all the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon, whom Moses struck with the chiefs of Midian, Evi and Rakim and Zur and Hur and Reba, the princes of Sihon, who lived in the land. The sons of Israel also killed Balaam, the son of Beor, the diviner, with the sword among the rest of their slain. The border of the sons of Reuben was the Jordan. This was the inheritance of the sons of Reuben according to their families, the cities, and their villages. Moses also gave an inheritance to the tribe of Gad, to the sons of Gad, according to their families. Their territory was Jazer, and all the cities of Gilead, and half the land of the sons of Ammon, as far as Aror, which is before Rabbah, and from Heshbon as far as Ramoth Mizpeth and Betanim, and from Mahaim as far as the border of Debir, and in the valley Beth Haram and Beth Nimrah and Succoth and Zaphon, the rest of the kingdom of Sihon, king of Heshbon, with Jordan as a border, as far as the lower end of the sea of Chinnereth beyond the Jordan to the east. This is the inheritance of the sons of Gad, according to their families, the cities, and their villages. Moses also gave an inheritance to the half-tribe of Manasseh, and it was for the half-tribe of the sons of Manasseh, according to their families. Their territory was from Mahanaim, all Bashan, all the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, and all the towns of Jair, which are in Bashan, 60 cities. Also half of Gilead, with Ashtaroth and Edrei, the cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan, were for the sons of Machir, the son of Manasseh, for half of the sons of Mashir according to their families. These are the territories which Moses apportioned for an inheritance in the plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan at Jericho to the east. But to the tribe of Levi, Moses did not give an inheritance. The Lord, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, as he had promised to them. There's a little side note here for Reverend John Peter Gabriel Muhlenberg, 1746-1807. Originally from Pennsylvania, he was educated in Germany and entered the Lutheran ministry in 1768. And on the visit to England in 1772, he was likewise ordained in the Anglican Church. He took the pastorate of 2 churches in Virginia and was elected to the state legislature in 1774. 2 years later, as a war with Britain was looming on the horizon, he raised the 8th Virginia Regiment from his church, and they entered the American Revolution, with Pastor Muhlenberg serving as military general throughout the conflict. Following the revolution, he returned to Pennsylvania and became lieutenant governor, afterward being elected to the first federal Congress, where he helped frame the Bill of Rights. He served as congressman under President George Washington and John Adams, and then as U.S. Senator under President Thomas Jefferson. Joshua 14, Caleb's request. Now, these are the territories which the sons of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the households of the tribe of the sons of Israel apportioned to them for an inheritance, by the lot of their inheritance, as the Lord commanded through Moses for the 9 tribes and the half-tribe. For Moses had given the inheritance of 2 tribes and the half-tribe beyond the Jordan, but he did not give an inheritance to the Levites among them. For the sons of Joseph were 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim, and they did not give a portion to the Levites in the land, except cities to live in, with their pasture lands for their livestock and for their property. Thus the sons of Israel did just as the Lord had commanded Moses, and they divided the land. Then the sons of Judah drew near to Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite said to him, "You know the word which the Lord spoke to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me to Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought word back to him as it was in my heart. Nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me made the heart of the people melt with fear, but I followed the Lord my God fully. So Moses swore on that day, saying, Surely the land on which your foot has trodden will be an inheritance to you and to your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God fully. Now behold, the Lord has let me live just as he spoke these 45 years from the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses when Israel walked in the wilderness, and now behold, I am 85 years old today. I am still as strong today as I was in the day Moses sent me, as my strength was then, so my strength is now for war and for going out and coming in. Now then, give me this hill country about which the Lord spoke on that day, for you heard on that day that Anakim were there, with great fortified cities. Perhaps the Lord will be with me, and he will drive them out as the Lord has spoken. So Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, for an inheritance. Therefore, Hebron became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, until this day, because he followed the Lord God of Israel fully. Now the name of Hebron was formerly Kirath Arba, for Arba was the greatest man among the Anakim. Then the land had rest from war. That's it. Territory of Judah. Now the lot for the tribe of the sons of Judah, according to their families, reached the border of Edom, southward toward the wilderness of Zin at the extreme south. The south border was from the lower end of the Salt Sea, from the bay that turns to the south. Then it proceeded southward to the ascent of Akrabim and continued to Zin, then went up by the south of Kadesh Barnea, and continued to Hezron, and went up to Adar and turned about to Karka. It continued to Asmon and proceeded to the brook of Egypt, and the border ended at the sea. This shall be your south border. The east border was the Salt Sea, as far as the mouth of the Jordan, and the border of the north side was from the bay of the sea at the mouth of the Jordan. Then the border went up to Beth Hogalah and continued on the north of Beth Araba, and the border went up to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. The border went up to Debir from the valley of Eker and turned northward toward Gilgal, which is opposite the ascent of Aduminim, which is on the south of the valley. And the border continued to the waters of En Shemesh, and it ended at En Rogel. Then the border went up the valley of Ben Hinnom to the slope of the Jebusite on the south, that is Jerusalem. And the border went up to the top of the mountain, which is before the valley of Hinnom, to the west, which is at the end of the valley of Rephaim toward the north. From the top of the mountain, the border curved to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah and proceeded to the cities of Mount Ephron. Then the border curved to Bala, that is Kirath Jearim. The border turned about from Baalah westward to Mount Seir and continued to the slope of Mount Jearim on the north, that is Chesalon, and went down to Beth Shemesh and continued through Timnah. The border proceeded to the side of Ekron northward. Then the border curved to Shekaron and continued to Mount Bala and proceeded to Jabneel, and the border ended at the sea. The west border was at the Great Sea, even its coastline. The west border was at the Great Sea, even its coastline. This is the border around the sons of Judah according to their families. Now he gave to Caleb the son of Jephunneh a portion among the sons of Judah, according to the command of the Lord to Joshua, namely Kirath Arba, Arba being the father of Anak. that is Hebron. Caleb drove out from there the three sons of Anak, Shishai, Shishai, and Ahiman, and Talmai, the children of Anak. Then he went up from there against the inhabitants of Debir. Now the name of Debir formerly was Kirath Sepher. And Caleb said, the one who attacks Kirath Sepher and captures it, I will give him Ashsa, my daughter, as a wife. These names. Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, captured it, so he gave him Ashah, his daughter, as a wife. It came about that when she came to him, she persuaded him to ask her father for a field. So she alighted from the donkey, and Caleb said to her, what do you want? Then she said, give me a blessing, since you have given me the land of the Negev, give me also springs of water. So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Judah according to their families. Now the cities at the extremity of the tribe of the sons of Judah towards the border of Edom in the south were Kabzeel and Eder and I don't think that's Jaguar, and Kinna and Dimana and Adada and Kadesh and Hazar and Ithnan, Ziph and Telem and Beloth and Hazar Hada. Hazar Hada. I can't say that word. Hazar had Atah and Kurath Hezron, that is Hazar. Amam and Shema and Molada and Hazar Gada and Heshmon and Beth Pelet and Hazar Shul and Beersheba and Bizeothiah, Bala and Eam and Ezim and Eltolad and Chezel and Hormah and Ziklag and Madmana and Sansana and Labath and Shilhim and Ian and Bremon, in all 29 cities with their villages. In the lowland, Ishtol and Zorah and Ashna and Zanoah and En-Ganim, Tapua and Enam, Jarmuth and Adullam, Soka and Ezka and Sherim and Idithaim and Gedra and Gedrathaim, 14 cities with their villages. Zenan and Hadashah and Migdalgad and Deline and Mizpah and Joktheel, Lachish and Baskath and Eglon and Kaban and Lahamas and Chitlish and Gederoth, Beth Dagon and Nama and Makada, 16 cities in their villages. Libnah and Ether and Ashan and Iphta and Ishna and Nezib and Keilah and Akzib and Shahah, 9 cities with their villages. Ekron with its towns and its villages, from Ekron even to the sea, all that were by the side of Ashad with their villages. Ashad, its towns and villages, Gaza, its towns and its villages, as far as the brook of Egypt and the great sea, even its coastline. In the hill country, Shamir and Jeter and Soka and Dana and Kirath Sana, that is Debir, and Anab and Eshtemo and Anim and Goshen and Holon and Gilo 11 cities with their villages. Arab and Doma and Ishan and Junum and Beth Tupah and Aphekah and Humta and Kirath Arba, that is Hebron, and Zior, 9 cities with their villages. Maon, Carmel, and Ziph, and Zutah, and Zereel, and Jokdim, and Zonah, Cain, Geba, and Timnah, 10 cities with their villages. Halhul, Beth Zur, and Gedor, and Marath, and Beth Anath, and Elkon. I can't say that word. Can't say any of these words. Eltekon, 6 cities with their villages. Kirath Baal, that is Kirath Jearim, and Rabbah, 2 cities with their villages. In the wilderness, Beth Arabah, Midden, and Sekekah, and Nibshan, and the city of the salt, and Engedi, 6 cities with their villages. Now as for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the sons of Judah could not drive them out. So the Jebusites live with the sons of Judah at Jerusalem until this day. Territory of Ephraim. Then the lot for the sons of Joseph went from the Jordan at Jericho to the waters of Jericho on the east into the wilderness, going up from Jericho through the hill country to Bethel. It went from Bethel to Luz and continued to the border of the Arkites at Tarath. Went down westward to the territory of the Jephthhites as far as the territory of lower Beth Horon, even to Gezer, and it ended at the sea. The sons of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim received their inheritance. Now this was the territory of the sons of Ephraim according to their families. The border of their inheritance eastward was Ataroth Adar, as far as upper Beth Horon. Then the border went westward at Mikmethath on the north, and the border turned about eastward to Tanath Shiloh, and continued beyond it to the east of Jonah. It went down from Jonah to Atroth and to Nara, then reached Jericho and came out from the Jordan. From Tappa, the border continued westward to the brook of Cana, and it ended at the sea. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Ephraim, according to their families, together with the cities which were set apart for the sons of Ephraim in the midst of the inheritance of the sons of Manasseh, all the cities with their villages. But they did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer. So the Canaanites live in the midst of Ephraim to this day, and they became forced laborers. Yeah, I'll do another one. Joshua 17, territory of Manasseh. Now this was the lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph. To Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, were allotted Gilead and Bashan, because he was a man of war. So the lot was made for the rest of the sons of Manasseh according to their families, for the sons of Abiezer, and for the sons of Helek, and for the sons of Israel, and for the sons of Shechem, and for the sons of Hefer, and for the sons of Shemidah. What is that? Shemidah. These were the male descendants of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, according to their families. However, Zelophehad, the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, only daughters, and these are the names of his daughters: Mahlah and Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They came near before Eleazar the priest and before Joshua the son of Nun and before the leaders, saying, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers." So according to the command of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among their father's brothers. Thus there fell 10 portions to Manasseh, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which is beyond the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance among his sons, and the land of Gilead belonged to the rest of the sons of Manasseh. The border of Manasseh ran from Asher to Michmethath. I'll leave it at that, which was east of Shechem. Then the border went southward to the inhabitants of En-Tappuah. The land of Tappuah belonged to Manasseh, but Tappuah on the border of Manasseh belonged to the sons of Ephraim. The border went down to the brook of Cana, southward of the brook. These cities belonged to Ephraim among the cities of Manasseh. And the border of Manasseh was on the north side of the brook, and it ended at the sea. The south side belonged to Ephraim, and the north side to Manasseh. And the sea was their border, and they reached to Asher on the north and to Issachar on the east. In Issachar and in Asher, Manasseh had Beth-shean and its towns, and Ibleam and its towns, and its inhabitants of Dor, and its towns, and its inhabitants of Endor, and its towns, and its inhabitants of Tanakh, and its towns, and its inhabitants of Megiddo, and its towns. The third is Nepheth. But the sons of Manasseh could not take possession of these cities, because the Canaanites persisted in living in that land. It came about when the sons of Israel became strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but they did not drive them out completely. Then the sons of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying, "Why have you given me only one lot and one portion for an inheritance, since I am numerous people whom the Lord has thus far blessed?" Joshua said to them, "If you are a numerous people, go up to the forest and clear a place for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the Rephaim, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you." The sons of Joseph said, "The hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who live in the valley land have chariots of iron, both those who are in Beth-shean and its towns, and those who are in the valley of Jezreel." Joshua spoke to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, "You are a numerous people and have great power. You shall not have one lot only, but the hill country shall be yours. For though it is a forest, you shall clear it, and to its farthest borders it shall be yours. For you shall drive out the Canaanites, even though they have chariots of iron, and though they are strong." That's it. All right, Joshua 18, rest of the land divided. Then the whole congregation of the sons of Israel assembled themselves at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there, and the land was subdued before them. There remained among the sons of Israel 7 tribes who had not divided their inheritance. So Joshua said to the sons of Israel, "How long will you put off entering to take possession of the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Provide for yourselves 3 men from each tribe, that I may send them, and that they may arise and walk through the land and write a description of it according to their inheritance. Then they shall return to me. They shall divide it into 7 portions. Judah shall stay in its territory on the south, and the house of Joseph shall stay in their territory on the north. You shall describe the land in 7 divisions, and bring the description here to me. I will cast lots for you here before the Lord our God. For the Levites have no portion among you, because the priesthood of the Lord is their inheritance. Gad and Reuben and the half-tribe of Manasseh also have received their inheritance eastward beyond the Jordan, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. Then the men arose and went, and Joshua commanded those who went to describe the land, saying, Go and walk through the land and describe it, and return to me. Then I will cast lots for you here before the Lord in Shiloh. So the men went and passed through the land, and described it by cities in 7 divisions in a book. And they came to Joshua to camp at Shiloh. And Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord. And there Joshua divided the land to the sons of Israel according to their divisions. Joshua 18:11, territory of Benjamin. Now the lot of the tribe of the sons of Benjamin came up according to the families, and their territory of their lot lay between the sons of Judah and the sons of Joseph. Their border on the north side was from the Jordan. Then the border went up to the side of Jericho on the north, and went up through the hill country westward, and it ended at the wilderness of Bethaven. From there the border continued to Luz, to the side of Luz, that is Bethel, southward. And the border went down to Ataroth Adar, near the hill which lies on the south of lower Beth Horon. The border extended from there and turned around on the west side southward from the hill which lies before Beth Horon southward, and it ended at Kirath Baal, that is Kirath Jearim, a city of the sons of Judah. This was the west side. Then the south side was from the edge of Kirath Jearim, and the border went westward and went to the fountain of the waters of Nephtoah. The border went down to the edge of the hill which is in the valley of Ben Hinnom, which is in the valley of Rephaim northward, and it went down to the valley of Hinnom, to the slope of the Jebusite southward, and went down to En-Rogel. It extended northward and went to En-Shemesh, and went to Gililoth, which is opposite the ascent of Adummim, and it went down to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. It continued to the side in front of the Arabah northward, and went down to Arabah. The border continued to the side of Beth Hoglah northward, and the border ended at the north bay of the Salt Sea, at the south end of the Jordan. This was the south border. Moreover, the Jordan was its border on the east side. This was the inheritance of the sons of Benjamin, according to their families and according to its borders all around. Now the cities of the tribes of the sons of Benjamin, according to their families, were Jericho, and Beth Hoglah, and Emek Keziz, and Beth Arabah, and Zemarim, and Bethel, and Avim, and Para, and Ophrah, I think that's Oprah, and Sephir Omoni, and Ophoni, or Opni, Ophni, and Geba, 12 cities with their villages, Gibeon, and Ramah, and Beeroth, and Mizpah, and Chephera, and Moza, and Rakim, and Irpeel, and Tarala, and Zelah, Haleph, and Jebusite, that is Jerusalem, Geba, Kerath, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the sons of Benjamin according to their families. A little side note here at the bottom, I just want to read it. Says, the God of your fathers, Joshua 18:3. In 1831, while a student at Andover Theological Seminary, Samuel Francis Smith wrote My Country, 'Tis of Thee, also known as America, which served as a de facto national anthem of the United States before the adoption of the Star-Spangled Banner as the official anthem. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, O thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. My native country, thee, land of the noble free, thy name I love. I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and temple hills. My heart with rapture thrills, like that above. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees, sweet freedom's song. Let mortal tongues awake, let all that breath partake, let rocks their silence break, the sound prolong. Our fathers God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God, our King. Joshua 19, Territory of Simeon. Then the second lot fell to Simeon, to the tribe of the sons of Simeon, according to their families, and their inheritance was in the midst of the inheritance of the sons of Judah. So they had as their inheritance Beersheba or Sheba, and Moladah, and Hazar Shaul, and Bala, and Ezem, and Eldolad, and Bethel, and Hormah, and Ziklag, and Beth Markoboth, and Hazar Susa, and Beth Laboth, and Sharuhen, 13 cities with their villages. Ain, Rimmon, and Ether, and Ashan, 4 cities with their villages, and all the villages which were around these cities as far as Balath Beer, Ramah of the Negev. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Simeon according to their families. The inheritance of the sons of Simeon was taken from the portion of the sons of Judah, for the share of the sons of Judah was too large for them. So the sons of Simeon received an inheritance in the midst of Judah's inheritance, territory of Zebulun. Now the third lot came up for the sons of Zebulun according to their families, and the territory of their inheritance was as far as Sarid. Then their border went up to the west into Maralah. It then touched Dabsheth and reached to the brook that is before Jokneam. Then it turned from Sarid to the east towards the sunrise as far as the border of Chisloth Tabor, and it proceeded to Daberath and up to Japhia. From there it continued eastward towards the sunrise to Gath Hefer, to Ethkazin, and it proceeded to Rimmon, which stretches to Nea. The border circled around it on the north of Hanathon, and it ended at the valley of Iftahel. Included also were Kata and Nahalal and Simron and Idalah and Bethlehem, 12 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance of the sons of Zebulun according to their families. These cities were their villages. Territory of Issachar. The fourth lot fell to Issachar, to the sons of Issachar according to their families. Their territory was Jezreel and included Chesoloth and Shunem, and Hapharim and Shion and Anaharoth and Rabbith and Kishon and Ebez and Rameth and En-Ganin and En-Hada and Beth Pazez. The border reached to Tabar and Shahazuma and Beth Shemesh, and their border ended at the Jordan, 16 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Issachar according to their families, the cities with their villages. Territory of Asher. Now the fifth lot fell to the tribe of the sons of Asher according to their families. Their territory was Helkath and Hali and Beaton and Akshaph and Alamechalek and Ahmad and Mishal, and it reached to Carmel on the west and to Shihor Libnath. It turned towards the east to Beth Dagon and reached to Zebulun and to the valley of Iftahel, northward to Bethemek and Neel. Then it proceeded on north to Kabul and Ebron and Rehob and Haman and Cana as far as Great Sidon. Sidon, I guess. The border turned to Ramah and to the fortified city of Tyre. Then the border turned to Hosa, and it ended at the sea by the region of Akzib. Included were Umah and Ephek and Rehob, 22 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Asher, according to their families, these cities with their villages. Territory of Naphtali. The sixth lot fell on the sons of Naphtali. The sons of Naphtali, according to their families. Their border was from Heleph, from the oak in Zananim, and Adami Nekeb, and Jabneel as far as Lakum, and it ended at the Jordan. Then the border turned westward to Aznoth Tabor, and proceeded from there to Hukok, and it reached to Zebulun on the south and touched Asher on the west, and to Judah at the Jordan towards the east. The fortified cities were Zidium, Zur, and Hamath, Rakath, and Chinnereth, and Adamah, and Ramah, and Hazar, and Kadesh, and Edrei, and En-Hazor, and Huron, and Migdal-El, Horem, and Bethanath, and Beth-Shemesh, 19 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Naphtali, according to their families, the cities with their villages. Territory of Dan. The seventh lot fell to the tribe of the sons of Dan, according to their families. The territory of their inheritance was Zorah, and Eshtal, and Ir-Shemesh, and Shalabin, and Ajalon, and Ithla, and Elon, and Timnah, and Ekron, and Eltek, and Gibbethon, and Balath, and Jehud, and Bene Barak, and Gath Ramon, and Me Jarkon, and Rakon, with the territory over against Joppa. The territories of the sons of Dan proceeded beyond them, for the sons of Dan went up and fought with Leshem and captured it. Then they struck it with the edge of the sword and possessed it, and settled in it. And they called Leshem Dan, after the name of Dan their father. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the sons of Dan, according to their families, these cities with their villages. When they finished apportioning the land for inheritance by its borders, the sons of Israel gave an inheritance in their midst to Joshua the son of Nun. In accordance with the command of the Lord, they gave him the city for which he asked, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim. So he built the city and settled in it. These are the inheritance which Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the households of the tribes of the sons of Israel distributed by lot in Shiloh before the Lord at the doorway of the tent of meeting. So they finished dividing the land. All right, Joshua 20, 6 cities of refuge. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, Designate the cities of refuge, of which I spoke to you through Moses, that the manslayer who kills any person unintentionally, without premeditation, may flee there, and they shall become your refuge from the avenger of blood. You shall flee to one of these cities, and shall stand at the entrance of the gate of the city, and state his case in the hearing of the elders of that city. And they shall take him into the city to them, and give him a place, so that he may dwell among them. Now if the avenger of blood pursues him, then they shall not deliver the manslayer into his hand, because he has struck his neighbor without premeditation, and did not hate him beforehand. He shall dwell in that city until he stands before the congregation for judgment, until the death of the one who is high priest in those days. Then the manslayer shall return to his own city, and to his own house, to the city from which he fled. So they set apart Kadesh and Galilee in the hill country of Naphtali, and Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kirath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. Beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, they designated Bezer in the wilderness on the plain from the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth in Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in the Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. Manasseh, that's how you say that. These were the appointed cities for all the sons of Israel, and for the stranger who sojourns among them, that whoever kills any person unintentionally may flee there, and not die by the hand of the avenger of blood until he stands before the congregation. 48 cities of the Levites. Then the heads of the households of the Levites approached Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the households of the tribes of the sons of Israel. They spoke to them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, saying, The Lord commanded through Moses to give us cities to live in, with their pasture lands for our cattle. So the sons of Israel gave the Levites from their inheritance these cities with their pasture lands, according to the command of the Lord. Then the lot came out for the families of the Kohathites, and the sons of Aaron, the priest, who were of the Levites, received 13 cities by lot from the tribe of Judah, and from the tribe of the Semonites, and from the tribe of Benjamin. The rest of the sons of Kohath received 10 cities by lot from the families of the tribe of Ephraim, and from the tribe of Dan, and from the half-tribe of Manasseh. I think that's it, Manasseh. The sons of Gershon received 13 cities from the lot from the families of the tribe of Issachar, and from the tribe of Asher, and from the tribe of Naphtali, and from the half-tribe of Manasseh in Bashan. The sons of Merari, according to their families, received 12 cities from the tribe of Reuben, and from the tribe of Gad, and from the tribe of Zebulun. Now the sons of Israel gave by lot to the Levites these cities with their pasture lands, as the Lord had commanded through Moses. They gave these cities, which are here mentioned by name, from the tribe of the sons of Judah, and from the tribe of the sons of Simeon. And they were 4 of the sons of Aaron, one of the families of the Kohathites, of the sons of Levi, for the lot was theirs first. Thus they gave them Kirath Arba, Arba being the father of Anak, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah, with its surrounding pasture lands. But the fields of the city and its villages they gave to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, as his possession. To the sons of Aaron, the priests, they gave Hebron, a city of refuge from the manslayer, with its pasture lands, and Libnah with its pasture lands, and Jatir with its pasture lands, and Eshtema with its pasture lands, and Hulon with its pasture lands, and Debir with its pasture lands, and Ain with its pasture lands, and Judah with its pasture lands, and Beth Shemesh with its pasture lands, 9 cities from these 2 tribes. From the tribe of Benjamin, Gibeon with its pasture lands, Geba with its pasture lands, Anathoth with its pasture lands, and Almon with its pasture lands, 4 cities. All the cities of the sons of Aaron, the priests, were 15 cities with their pasture lands. Then the cities from the tribe of Ephraim were allotted to the families of the sons of Kohath, the Levites, even to the rest of the sons of Kohath. It gave them Shechem, the city of refuge for the manslayer, with its pasture lands, in the hill country of Ephraim, and Gezer with its pasture lands, and Kibzem with its pasture lands, and Beth Horon with its pasture lands, 4 cities. From the tribe of Dan, Eltek with its pasture lands, Gibbethon with its pasture lands, Ajalon with its pasture lands, Gathrimmon with its pasture lands, 4 cities. From the half-tribe of Manasseh, they allotted Tanakh with its pasture lands, and Gathrimmon with its pasture lands, 2 cities. All the cities with their pasture lands for the families of the rest of the sons of Kohath were 10. To the sons of Gershon, one of the families of the Levites from the half-tribe of Manasseh, they gave Golan and Bashan, the city of refuge for the manslayer, with its pasture lands, and Beeshtarah, with its pasture lands, 2 cities. From the tribe of Issachar, they gave Kishon with its pasture lands, Dabarath with its pasture lands, Jarmuth with its pasture lands, En Ganim with its pasture lands, 4 cities. From the tribe of Asher, they gave Mishal with its pasture lands, Abdon with its pasture lands, Helkath with its pasture lands, and Rehob with its pasture lands, 4 cities. From the tribe of Naphtali, they gave Kadesh in Galilee, the city of refuge for the manslayer, with its pasture lands, and Hamathdor with its pasture lands, and Kartan with its pasture lands, 3 cities. All the cities of the Gershonites, according to their families, were 13 cities with their pasture lands. To the families of the sons of Merari, the rest of the Levites, they gave from the tribe of Zebulun, Jokneam with its pasture lands, and Karta with its pasture lands, Dimnah with its pasture lands, Nahalal with its pasture lands, 4 cities. From the tribe of Reuben, they gave Bezir with its pasture lands, and Jahaz with its pasture lands, Kedmoth with its pasture lands, and Maphath with its pasture lands, 4 cities. From the tribe of Gad, they gave Ramoth in Gilead, the city of refuge for the manslayer, with its pasture lands, and Mahanaim with its pasture lands, Heshbon with its pasture lands, Jazer with its pasture lands, 4 cities in all. All these cities were the cities of the sons of Merari according to their families, the rest of the families of the Levites, and their lot was 12 cities. All the cities of the Levites in the midst of the possession of the sons of Israel were 48 cities with their pasture lands. These cities each had its surrounding pasture lands, thus it was with all these cities. So the Lord gave Israel all the land which he had sworn to give to the fathers, and they possessed it and lived in it. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, according to all that he had sworn to their fathers, and no one of their enemies stood before them. The Lord gave all their enemies into their hand. Not one of the good promises which the Lord had made to the house of Israel failed. All came to pass. Joshua 22. Tribes beyond Jordan return. Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites and the Gadites and half the tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, You have kept all that Moses the servant of the Lord commanded you, and have listened to my voice in all that I commanded you. You have not forsaken your brothers these many days to this day, but have kept the charge of the commandment of the Lord your God. And now the Lord your God has given rest to your brothers, as he spoke to them. Therefore turn now and go to your tents, to the land of your possession, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave you beyond the Jordan. Only be very careful to observe the commandment and the law which Moses the servant of the Lord commanded you, to love the Lord your God and walk in all his ways and keep his commandments and hold fast to him and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. Now to the 1/2 tribe of Manasseh Moses had given a possession in Bashan, but to the other half Joshua gave a possession among their brothers westward beyond the Jordan. So when Joshua sent them away to their tents, he blessed them, and said to them, Return to your tents with great riches, and with very much livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, iron, and with very many clothes. Divide the spoil of your enemies with your brothers. The sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh returned home and departed from the sons of Israel at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan, to go to the land of Gilead, to the land of their possession, which they had possessed, according to the command of the Lord through Moses. Joshua 22, the offensive altar. When they came into the region of the Jordan, which is in the land of Canaan, the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by the Jordan, a large altar in appearance. And the sons of Israel heard it, said, Behold, the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan, in the region of the Jordan, on the side belonging to the sons of Israel. When the sons of Israel heard of it, the whole congregation of the sons of Israel gathered themselves at Shiloh to go up against them in war. Then the sons of Israel sent to the sons of Reuben, and to the sons of Gad, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, into the land of Gilead, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, and with him 10 chiefs, one chief for each father's household from each of the tribes of Israel, and each one of them was the head of his father's household among the thousands of Israel. They came to the sons of Reuben, and to the sons of Gad, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, to the land of Gilead, and they spoke with them, saying, Thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, What is this unfaithful act which you have committed against the God of Israel, turning away from following the Lord this day, by building yourselves an altar to rebel against the Lord this day? Is not the iniquity of Peor enough for us, from which we have not cleansed ourselves to this day? Although a plague came on the congregation of the Lord, that you must turn away this day from following the Lord. If you rebel against the Lord today, he will be angry with the whole congregation of Israel tomorrow. If, however, the land of your possession is unclean, then cross into the land of the possession of the Lord, where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and take possession among us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, or rebel against us by building an altar for yourselves, besides the altar of the Lord our God. Did not Achan the son of Zerah act unfaithfully in the things under the ban, and wrath fall on all the congregation of Israel? And that man did not perish alone in his iniquity. Then the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh answered and spoke to the heads of the families of Israel. The mighty one, God the Lord, the mighty one, God the Lord, he knows, and may Israel itself know, if it was a rebellion or if it was an unfaithful act against the Lord Lord, do not save us this day. Let me read that one more time, because that didn't make any sense to me. The mighty one, God the Lord, the mighty one, God the Lord. He knows, and may Israel itself know, if it was in rebellion or if in an unfaithful act against the Lord, do not save us this day. If we have built us an altar to turn away from following the Lord, or if to offer a burnt offering or grain offering on it, or if to offer sacrifices of people offerings on it, may the Lord himself require it. But truly we have done this out of concern, for a reason, saying, In time to come your sons may say to our sons, What have you to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? For the Lord has made the Jordan a border between us and you, you sons of Reuben and sons of Gad. You have no portion in the Lord. So your sons may make our sons stop fearing the Lord. Therefore, we said, Let us build an altar, not for burnt offering or for sacrifice. Rather, it shall be a witness between us and you, and between our generations after us, that we are to perform the service of the Lord before him with our burnt offerings, and with our sacrifices, and with our peace offerings, so that your sons will not say to our sons in time to come, You have no portion in the Lord. Therefore, we said, It shall also come about, if they say this to us or our generations in time to come, then we shall say, See the copy of the altar of the Lord, which our fathers made, not for burnt offering or for sacrifice. Rather, it is a witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against the Lord and turn away from following the Lord this day, by building an altar for burnt offering, for grain offering, or for sacrifice, besides the altar of the Lord our God, which is before his tabernacle. So when Phinehas the priest and the leaders of the congregation, even the heads of the families of Israel who were with him, heard the words which the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the sons of Manasseh spoke, it pleased them. And Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest said to the sons of Reuben and to the sons of Gad and to the sons of Manasseh, Today we know that the Lord is in our midst, because you have not committed this unfaithful act against the Lord. Now you have delivered the sons of Israel from the hand of the Lord. Then Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest and the leaders returned to the sons of Reuben and from the sons of Gad and from the land of Gilead to the land of Canaan to the sons of Israel, and brought back word to them. The word pleased the sons of Israel, and the sons of Israel blessed God. And they did not speak of going up against them in war to destroy the land in which the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad were living. The sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad called the altar witness, for they said, It is a witness between us that the Lord is God. That's it, and there's this little sidebar here. I want to read it. Reverend Frederick Augustus Muhlenberg, 1750-1801. Originally from Pennsylvania, he was educated in Germany and then ordained to the Lutheran ministry. On his return to America, he took the pastorate of the church in Pennsylvania and later in New York City. While at the later location, the British occupied the city and forced him from his church, desecrating it. He was elected to the Continental Congress and then to the Pennsylvania legislature, becoming its Speaker of the House. He headed the state convention to ratify the U.S. Constitution and was elected as a member of the first Federal Congress, where he became the first Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, helping frame the Bill of Rights. Free to choose, Joshua 24. A declaration often seen on decorative plaques hanging in Christian homes or churches is, As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24:15. Those who post this pronouncement do so as an affirmation of their own personal biblical faith, that they and their family have committed themselves to follow the Lord. But the entire verse contains much more than just this short phrase. The full verse actually circumscribes the manner in which Christianity was practiced in early America. Notice the entirety of what Joshua told the people in that verse. If it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves today whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served, which were beyond the river, or the gods, the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua offered the people a choice. He announced that he and his family were going to serve God, but that if the people considered that choice to be disagreeable to them, they were free to choose differently. They could choose to serve the gods in Egypt from whence they had come and where they had lived in bondage, or they could choose the gods of the land into which they were entering and which God would destroy, or they could choose the Lord. They had a choice. They were not coerced to serve God. They could make their own personal decision and would live with the consequences. Christian leaders embraced this free market approach to religion in America from the very beginning, establishing it both in law and policy, first in the colonies and then afterward when the colonies became states. Significantly, those early Christian leaders did not embrace this approach because they were indifferent to Christianity or because they believed all religions equal, or they held an opposite position on both points. But based on biblical teachings, they believed that individuals must make their own voluntary choice about their faith and then live with the results, even if that choice meant the difference between heaven and hell. God had established this non-coercive approach as his modus operandi from the very beginning. After creating Adam and Eve and placing them in the Garden of Eden, he allowed them a choice that meant the difference between continued fellowship with him or separation from him. There was neither force nor pressure nor coercion applied to their decision. It was completely their own voluntary choice to live in his love or to reject him. They chose poorly and then lived with the consequences. Joshua had followed this pattern, as did Moses, Deuteronomy 30:19, and Elijah. In fact, in Elijah's contest against the prophets of Baal atop Mount Carmel, 1 Kings 18:21, Elijah came near to all the people and said, "How long will you hesitate between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him." And not only did Elijah offer the people their choice, but he also permitted the followers of Baal to take additional time to express their faith. 1 Kings 18:25-29. When they finished, Elijah presented his case for the God of Israel, and the people made their choice. Elijah, even though outnumbered 450 to 1, nevertheless embraced competition, believing that if given an equal opportunity to compete and win the people's allegiance, when eternal truth was presented and the comparison made, the people would choose correctly. The New Testament is filled with examples following the same pattern, demonstrated first by Jesus himself, then by the apostles Peter and Paul, then by the ministers Philip and Timothy, etc. Christians, both then and now, believe that when truth is presented to people, the Holy Spirit will confirm it in the hearts of the hearers. John 15:26, 16:3, 1 John 2:27. And it will eventually triumph. Sometimes truth is accepted, 1 Thessalonians 2:13, and sometimes rejected, 2 Thessalonians 2:10-12. But the key is to present the gospel in its unvarnished truth. The founders also believed that the truth of Christianity would prevail on its own merits, that Christianity need fear no other religion. They therefore followed the biblical model of allowing people to make a free choice. As Thomas Jefferson explained, truth can stand by itself. If there be but one right religion, and Christianity that one, we should wish to see the 999 wandering sects gathered into the fold of truth. But against such a majority, we cannot effect this by force. Reason and persuasion are the only practical instruments. To make way for these, free inquiry must be indulged, and how can we wish others to indulge it while we refuse it ourselves? Founder Noah Webster, a devout Christian and an early judge and legislator responsible for specific language in the U.S. Constitution, similarly reminded Christian Americans, "Let us reject the spirit of making proselytes to particular creeds by any other means than persuasion." James Madison agreed. If the public homage of a people can ever be worthy of the favorable regard of the holy and omniscient being to whom it is addressed, it must be that in which those who join in it are guided only by their free choice, by the impulse of their hearts and the dictates of their consciences. And such a spectacle must be exciting to all Christian nations. Ezra Stiles, 1727-1795, a conservative evangelical Christian theologian and president of Yale, rejoiced in the free market approach to religion produced by American Christianity. Religious liberty is peculiarly friendly to fair and generous disquisition. Here, deism will have its full chance, nor need libertines more to complain of being overcome by any weapons but the gentle, the powerful ones of argument and truth. Revelation, the Bible, will be found to stand the test of the 10,000th examination. Because of this free market approach, American Christians openly received numerous religious groups to America, including Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, and many others, but they were also faithful to share the gospel and offer a choice to every individual. As believers, we need not be fearful of any other religion. After all, if someone has chosen Christianity, it is because he or she believes it to be the truth. The truth does not need to be threatened by opinions of others. Our genuine love for God and for others, and the conviction that God will cause the truth to prevail when presented, enables us to welcome those from different religions. There is no need to exclude religious competition, but rather a wholeheartedly embrace the free market approach to faith, another of America's many historic policies derived from the Bible. Joshua 23, Joshua's farewell address. Now it came about after many days, when the Lord had given rest to Israel from all their enemies on every side, and Joshua was old and advanced in years, that Joshua called for all Israel, for their elders and their heads and their judges and their officers, and said to them, I am old, advanced in years, and you have seen all that the Lord your God has done to all these nations because of you, for the Lord your God is he who has been fighting for you. See, I have apportioned to you these nations which remain as an inheritance for your tribes, with all the nations which I have cut off, from the Jordan even to the great sea toward the setting of the sun. Lord your God, he will thrust them out from before you and drive them from before you, and you will possess their land just as the Lord your God promised you. Be very firm then to keep and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, so that you may not turn aside from it to the right hand or to the left, so that you will not associate with these nations, these which remain among you, or mention the name of their gods, or make anyone swear by them, or serve them, or bow down to them. But you are to cling to your Lord your God, as you have done to this day. For the Lord has driven out great and strong nations from before you, and as for you, no man has stood before you to this day. One of your men puts to fight 1,000, for the Lord your God is he who fights for you, just as he promised you. So take diligent heed to yourselves to love the Lord your God. For if you ever go back and cling to the rest of these nations, these which remain among you, and intermarry with them, so that you associate with them and they with you, know with certainty that the Lord your God will not continue to drive these nations out from before you, but they will be a snare and a trap to you, and a whip on your sides and thorns in your ears, until you perish from off this good land which the Lord your God has given you. Now behold, today I am going the way of all the earth, and you know in all your hearts and in all your souls that not one word of all the good words which the Lord your God spoke concerning you has failed, and all have been fulfilled for you. Not one of them has failed. It shall come about that just as all the good words which the Lord your God spoke to you have come upon you, so the Lord will bring upon you all the threats until he has destroyed you from off this good land which the Lord your God has given you. When you transgress the covenant of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, and go and serve other gods and bow down to them, then the anger of the Lord will burn against you, and you will perish quickly from off the good land which he has given you. Joshua 24. Joshua reviews Israel's history. Final chapter in Joshua. Then Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, and called for the elders of Israel, and for the heads of their judges and their officers, and they presented themselves before God. Joshua said to all the people, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, from ancient times your fathers lived beyond the river, namely Terah, the father of Abraham and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond the river and led him through all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his descendants and gave him Isaac. To Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau, and to Esau I gave Mount Seir to possess it, but Jacob and his sons went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt by what I did in its midst, and afterward I brought you out. I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and you came to the sea, and Egypt pursued your fathers with chariots and horsemen to the Red Sea. But when they cried out to the Lord, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and brought the sea upon them and covered them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and you lived in the wilderness for a long time. Then I brought you into the land of the Amorites who live beyond the Jordan, and they fought with you. And I gave them into your hand, and you took possession of their land when I destroyed them before you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose and fought against Israel, and he sent and summoned Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I was not willing to listen to Balaam. So he had to bless you, and I delivered you from his hand. You crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. And the citizens of Jericho fought against you, and the Amorites, and the Perizzite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Thus I gave them into your hand. Then I sent the hornet before you, and it drove out the 2 kings of the Amorites from before you, but not by your sword or your bow. I gave you a land on which you had not labored, the cities which you had not built, and you had lived in them. You are eating of vineyards and olives which you did not plant. Joshua 24:14. We will serve the Lord. Now, therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. If it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, choose yourselves today whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served, which were beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. The people answered and said, Far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For the Lord our God is he who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and who did these great signs in our sight, and preserved us through all the way in which we went among all the peoples through whose midst we passed. The Lord drove out from before us all the peoples, even the Amorites who lived in the land. We also will serve the Lord, for he is our God. Then Joshua said to the people, You will not be able to serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgression or your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, then he will turn and do you harm and consume you after he has done good to you. The people said to Joshua, No, but we will serve the Lord. Joshua said to the people, You are witness against yourselves that you have chosen for yourselves the Lord to serve him. And they said, We are witnesses. Now therefore, put away the foreign gods which are in your midst, and incline your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. The people said to Joshua, We will serve the Lord our God, and we will obey his voice. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and made for them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. And Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. Joshua said to all the people, Behold, this stone shall be for a witness against us, for it has heard all the words of the Lord which he spoke to us. Thus it shall be for a witness against you, so that you do not deny your God. Then Joshua dismissed the people, each to his inheritance. Joshua 24:29, Joshua's death and burial. It came about after these things that Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in the territory of his inheritance in Timnath-Serah, which is in the hill country of Ephraim, on the north of Mount Gaish. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who survived Joshua, and had known all the deeds of the Lord which he had done for Israel. Now they buried the bones of Joseph, which the sons of Israel brought up from Egypt, at Shechem, in the piece of ground which Jacob had bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money, and they became the inheritance of Joseph's sons. The Eliezer, the son of Aaron, died, and they buried him in Geba of Phinehas, his son, which was given him in the hill country of Ephraim.